Hello, everyone. Welcome to She Knows Arsenal player ratings. We're going to be going through the player ratings for the North London Derby, where Arsenal have drawn 2-2 with Tottenham Hotspur. So make sure you guys get into the comments and let me know what you guys are thinking. I'm sure you guys have lots and lots and lots of thoughts. We have a lot to discuss here because it wasn't a great day at the office for Arsenal, I don't think. My initial feeling on the game was that it was going to be a tough game, not necessarily because Tottenham were going to be amazing, but more from the standpoint of like, this is our third game in a week. And, we haven't actually had a situation in a long time where we play our first 11 in Europe as well as the Premier League. So I knew there were going to be some tired legs. And as the game wore on, we were probably going to get more tired and they were going to look more fresh because they have not played in Europe. They have been resting all week. And so, being at home was an advantage. I think there were a lot of things that were going in our way at the beginning of the game that we should have utilized. I think the first 35 minutes of the game, Arteta coached a 3-0. We'll get to the starting 11 because I know people take issue with the starting 11, but let me just land here. Mikel Arteta coached a 3-0 in the first 35 minutes of the game. The first 10 minutes were kind of even with both teams kind of feel each other out, but we started to impose ourselves. We were cutting through them quite easily. And in those first 35 minutes of the games, you can see that our goal was to stop them from playing out from the back and nick them when they're trying to, play out. And we were doing that. The only thing is that we weren't capitalizing on those situations. One position in particular that I remember is Udogie passing the ball backward blindly and Nketiah anticipating it. He was in a very good position to slot it over to Jesus, who was open on the back stick, and he decides to shoot at a very you're not making that. Like, you're not that type of striker where you're going to be able to make the most impossible shot become a goal from that angle. Like, you just don't have that. So the decision making right then and there was poor. That right there could have been 1-0. Then we scored first goal. That was great. We took advantage. We cut through them again very easily. There was nothing that Spurs were doing defensively that was keeping us out. The only way that they were going to keep us out is, one, if we made bad decisions in the final third, and two, if we gave them the ball, period. Like, we were cutting through them. It wasn't that difficult. They're not a great defensive team. Gabriel Jesus anticipates Maddison receiving the ball from his goalkeeper, and at a bad angle, Jesus wins it. And instead of slamming it in the back of the net, he panics and kicks it over. That right there is 2-0 and the game is over. Game is over from there. If you concede the Romero goal, that was calamitous, and then Maddison gets pickpocketed there in the first 35 minutes of the game, it's done. So that right there is a 3-0 game with Spurs doing relatively nothing. Now, Raya made a really good save, which is fine. I'll give him that. But for the most part, I did a watch along and I saw a lot of people saying, "Oh, they're the way better team." They didn't do anything special in that game, you guys. They didn't do anything special. They played better football than they had played before. But really, it was just a simple game of Arsenal shit the bed. Period. Point blank. We were not even at our best, and we're 2-1 up in the second half. 10 seconds later, Jorginho just absolutely loses his mind, starts diddling around with the ball at the halfway line, gets pickpocketed, and they score. And that is our main issue, is that, one, we don't concentrate, and two, we just, when they take advantage of the situations that we make a mistake, and when they make a mistake, we don't punish. We don't punish. We punish Maddison for that mistake that he makes. We punish Udogie for that mistake that he makes. The game is 3-0. We get to take players off. We get to rest, and we're celebrating right now instead of having this conversation about how poorly we played in that second half. Spurs did nothing special whatsoever. I didn't see anything from them that was like they're outplaying us. In the second half, when we started to get more tired and they were fresh, yeah, they were kind of like jumping on second balls and we were struggling a little bit more. But they still didn't do anything special, you guys. Nothing. It's the meme where Arsenal are standing there with our fucking backpack on, and Arsenal comes up behind Arsenal and hits Arsenal over the head with a little pole or a stick. We beat ourselves today. We beat ourselves today. And it disappoints me to know that we wouldn't have even had to been that good to have beaten them, but they still walked away with a point. Now, I think the goal that they score is a good goal. I know some people are like, "Oh, Saka should have done this, he should have done that. He got cooked by Madison." Sometimes that happens. Sometimes the other player is just good. Whatever. But the second goal, I just can't accept it. I'm still shaking from it because as bad as we were playing, we could have still walked away with the 3 points. And that just infuriates me with everything. They didn't even have to do much. They weren't outplaying us. Like, it just wasn't even like, I was watching the game, you guys. Like, you guys know, like, I tend to be very dramatic. They did not outplay us. We outplayed ourselves. Like, it's just so frustrating every single time we do it. And so, I understand also the conversation around the starting 11. I was very disappointed to see Eddie Nketiah starting in this game, but I had a feeling in my heart, deep down, that he would start because he didn't play midweek at all, and Trossard was out. And if Trossard is out, he's going to revert back to Nketiah, who I thought had a really poor game today. And I don't I'll talk about some other players too that I don't think had a great game. But even when he's having a poor, there's some players in our team that even if they have poor games, they contribute to the team. Like Odegaard, like Saka, they can have poor individual games and still contribute. Jesus, he's one of those as well. Eddie Nketiah is somebody that he does not contribute anything if he's not having a great game, because he wasn't even from a pressing standpoint, he wasn't able to take advantage of any of those situations where the team was pressing as a group and we would nick the ball. He was just not on it at all. He couldn't hold the ball up. He couldn't pass. He couldn't do anything. He couldn't beat a man. It was very frustrating to see him play 90 plus minutes today. He is a blind spot for Mikel Arteta. And there are certain players in your team that if you continue to play them, they will end up sacking you, period. And Eddie could just be that player because he's not good enough. And I'm tired of beating around the bush on it because people are sensitive. He's not. He's not. And I know that we didn't have that many other choices, but that was not it. That was not it. I would even venture to say that we probably should have played Jesus central and Nelson out wide, or ESR out wide, anybody else out wide, because he just gives you very little. If he's playing well, he'll give you a goal. If he's playing poor, there's just nothing there. And I'm so frustrated by that. But that being said, even with the starting 11, including Eddie, who played poorly today, Arsenal absolutely kicked themselves in the face. And they walk away with a point thinking that they played well. And we walk away with a point knowing that we probably should have won that game. First 35 minutes. So frustrating. I think a point is all we deserve. I'm glad that we didn't lose. But damn, that was not good, Arsenal. That was not good. This just, I could deal with us looking sluggish and stuff after playing midweek. I could deal with that. I could deal with us not being at our top level. But that does not mean you give the ball away at the halfway line the way that you did, Jorginho. That is just insanity. Insanity. I can't get over it. I won't. I can't. Rice, I don't think was having his best game, but he was taken off because of an injury that he's been trying to deal with since he's been at Arsenal. And I'm not quite sure why Vieira came off, but it might just have been tactical or maybe an injury as well. But I just didn't see enough from anybody. I'm frustrated because, the narrative will be that Tottenham were great, but they fucking weren't. And we just let them get a point. It's frustrating. I want us to make teams work for it, and we never do. It's frustrating. It just is. There's 200 of you guys in here. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. A fan says ESR and Nelson should have been subbed on earlier. Schwarz King says, but no one will talk about that. I'm not sure what you're saying. We should have had a second penalty. Let me know when that was. Leo says, Gabriel Jesus should have scored 3. Earth Extremity says Jesus should have scored. That one probably frustrates me the most because that ends up being the chance that completely deads the game. The Nketiah one, yeah, that's bad decision making, but Jesus, I expect a player of his quality to, you're in the box, just put it in the back of the net. It absolutely demoralizes them to concede 2 goals of that calamitous magnitude. Like, it just does. And to not put that away, I just felt like even when we scored, people will say, like, in the watch along, they'll vouch for me. We scored that penalty and I did not even celebrate because I got the same feeling in my gut that I got when we scored, when we went 2-0 up against Fulham, that I just had a feeling we would concede because there was nothing in that game that made me feel like we had complete control of it. And we conceded 10 seconds later. The Sheikh says Arteta was outclassed by an experienced coach. Um, if he was outclassed, then, Tottenham would have won. But again, like, saying he was outclassed and making it all about Mikel Arteta, I will say that I think Mikel Arteta made a mistake with Nketiah. But I think people are just, I don't like Arteta, or I don't think Arteta is good enough. So this is confirmation bias of him not being outclassed by another coach. It's like they were passing the ball to us while they were trying to play out of the back. Mikel coached us to press the shit out of them and win the ball. And we did it twice, and we didn't put the ball in the back of the net. So how is he out coached by a more experienced manager? That's clearly Gabriel Jesus not making the right decision, not putting his foot through the ball, and Eddie not making the right decision in the final third. So, one, the only way that you're outclassed by a more experienced manager is if they take away the 3 points. They didn't. But again, like, what did Ange do to make Jorginho at the halfway line just give them the ball? I'm sorry. First 35 minutes, Mikel Arteta coached a 3-0. I can be upset about Eddie, but Eddie being up there was not stopping us from just like doing normal things, period. Like, we should have had at least 3 goals in that first half. And we should not be giving the ball away at the halfway line after we scored the penalty. I'm so sorry, but as frustrated as I am with Mikel Arteta for not, you know, maybe trying something else up front, and didn't have to do anything to outclass Mikel Arteta because the players just shit the bed on the pitch. Like, that's not coaching. That's Arteta. Like, that's Arsenal kicking themselves in the face. I'm sorry. Like, Nor says Jorginho at his big age shouldn't be having these errors. But no, Big Ange, he totally outclassed Arteta by what? What did he do? Like, there's nothing that is not outclassing anybody. Like, that's Arteta. Like, that is Arsenal kicking themselves. I'm so sorry. Like, I can blame maybe like 25% of the game on Mikel, but 75% of that was the players just shitting the damn bed. Period. Point blank. Sorry. Like, I can't. John says Spurs played the better football by some distance. I don't agree with that, but fair enough. But again, that will be the narrative because it is what it is. But better football didn't give them the 3 points. So, there it goes. And every time we got the ball and we got into the final third, we cut through them pretty quickly. Like, I would be like, if I felt like they actually played the better football, I would say it. But I don't actually think that they did. I think the second half was both teams kind of fouling each other, injuries, mistakes. And they played the better football. But again, Udogie kicks it back like blindly to Nketiah. Madison almost gets pickpocketed right there in his box. I don't think they played the better football. But that's my take. I think people will say that because they don't like Arsenal. Like, that's just what it is. Mark says this has nothing to do with Arteta. Mistakes happen, and the manager does not go over the white line. This was the players, once again, mentality and focus. Elliot Roberts says it takes only 5 players to see our deficiencies. Well, 5 players is a lot, but I'm just not convinced, you guys. I think, one, we had a game midweek. We were tired. if you actually watch the first half with your true eyes and are not lying because of, results-based analysis, we were outplaying them in the first half. We were the much better side. Maybe they take the second half and that's what you're focusing on. But that second half was not even good by either team. I didn't see anybody really controlling the game or bopping it around anybody. It was a lot of fouls. It was a lot of chippiness. It was just a lot of nothing. So I don't know. That's just what I saw. But in terms of like injuries and stuff like that, like I just don't think our team had enough composure. I think, again, if Jorginho doesn't give away at the halfway line, are we having these same conversations? Not really, So the injuries are one thing, but the first 35 minutes I thought we looked really good. And that was without Trossard, without Martinelli, without Rice having his best game, And then we had Kai come on and Jorginho come on, and I think just all in all, the team just kind of like the level just dropped. I really did see like quite a bit of fatigue, and it does take a lot out of you to get up 2-0 or 2-1 after fighting hard to get to that position, and then have somebody make a huge individual error that just completely just deflates the team. So, but yeah, there you go. There you go. Deshay says our midfield is looking weak. I think Rice will be fine. To be honest, like I think it was precautionary, but yeah. Landers says Arteta taking Jesus out was a bit bizarre. Yeah, it was a bit bizarre, but I don't know. He just has this thing where I guess because Jesus, he did look a little bit tired towards the end of that half, because he had played majority. He's still getting back, and he played majority in midweek, and then he played very hard and a lot against Spurs, and so he took him off. And I didn't like it, but it's what he did. It's what he did. It's annoying. The Cosmic Moth says, yeah, I didn't like any of Mikel's subs. It was like he was playing for the draw. And he probably was at that stage. I think at a certain point, like when you don't think you can win, I mean, it's such a difficult game to analyze because I think because of the results-based analysis will make you think that like we were completely outplayed. We didn't have any chances. They were just, kicking it around us and all this kind of stuff. But like, I'm sorry, at 2-1, like we had that game. We had that game. I'm very like, I don't know. I'm very like, I think at a certain point he did try to go for the draw because it didn't look like we can win it, but we had so many chances to win it. It's so annoying. Even if you said Spurs were amazing, the game was still quite even and we still could have won it. So it's tough. But I do think he went to a I do think he maybe tried to shore us up a little bit and make sure that we didn't lose it. It's important not to lose the game when you don't think you can win it, So yeah. Let's see. Lander says, just realize our pressing is all due to Martinelli, who left flank was not there. You guys, I'm sorry. Like the game is 90 plus minutes. It's not just the last 20 minutes of the second half. The first half, we pressed them to absolute death, and they were absolutely on the ropes for at least 20 minutes. Our pressing was fine. The only time that we started to get a little bit like was obviously when Jorginho was in there, and so we didn't have the ability to stop the transitions like we usually would, but our press was fine. Like, our press was not the issue. It was what we did with the press after. Ayanle says, Odegaard is so overrated, highs in big games. Saka makes this guy look good. I dare him to play left center mid. Okay. This is the tough thing about when Arsenal have a bad result, then all the people come like kind of crawling out of their corners and say things that aren't actually true. Odegaard's not overrated. That's not what you guys were saying when he was playing against PSV. That's not like, it's strange that like one result, then people just start coming out of nowhere. So if this is a big game, right? Because you're calling Spurs at home a big game. He was excellent against Spurs last season, home and away. I think he scored like 2 goals, maybe 1, and got like an assist. So if you're saying that this is a big game and he always hides in big games, then what were you saying last season when he scored and was really good in both of those games? So like, I understand that people are frustrated, but let's not be disingenuous about what we saw. let's not be disingenuous about what we saw. Kevy Kev says Odegaard is elite and also human. Yeah, a little bit like having a difficult time connecting with the idea that Odegaard is overrated. But I get that we're upset because of the result. So we're just going to say things that we've always felt, and then it's confirmation bias. But Odegaard may not have had his best game today. But again, first 35 minutes, he was influential in that. And we should have put the game away then, you know? So yeah, Tawana says Odegaard game changed when Rice was subbed off. Can someone explain to me why Nketiah played 90 minutes? It's a blind spot for Mikel Arteta. Ify says Odegaard was the one trying to tell his other teammates to press. What game were some of you guys watching? Again, I've seen this so many times. Whenever you do post-match after Arsenal have a result that people don't like, they start saying things that are disingenuous. And so I knew that this was going to happen. Odegaard overrated, all of our players are shit. We're the worst team in the world. Spurs were playing us off the park, all this kind of stuff. When I watched the game, it just really wasn't that at all. But, it is what it is. I don't know what to say. Chris says, imagine saying Odegaard is overrated. People need to stop watching football with their toenails and then coming up with these assertions. This is just the game. I don't like Odegaard. He's playing instead of a player that I want to play, or, he's just somebody that Lee Gunner doesn't like. So I don't like him either. And so whenever we don't have a good result, I find a way to make it his fault. It's kind of transparent. I've been around the block long enough to know how this works. So, yeah. Let's see. Andy says this isn't an Odegaard issue, although I do believe Odegaard, Saka, Jesus, and Nketiah's intensity dropped at the back end of the first half. Vieira looked like the only one who maintained it in the first. John Donut says you hype a play when he has a bad game, you trash them. Odegaard was quiet, but he was not mid. And but the thing is like Odegaard is an excellent player, period. So even if he has a bad game, that doesn't stop him from being the player that he is. And when people are binary, it stops the conversation from being interesting anymore. When, Odegaard has a great game, then he's the best player on the planet. When he has a bad game, he's the worst player on the planet and super overrated. That's just not how football conversation should happen. It's just boring. And it's kind of like, I don't know. TF says, Jess, we were so poor and these lot couldn't win if they were clinical. That game would have been over in 30 minutes. Also proves Partey is our most important player. I agree with you all the way up to the first 30 minutes, but it doesn't really prove anything about Thomas Partey being our most important player. Can you guarantee that we win that game if he's in there? I mean, I've seen Thomas Partey do similar things to what Jorginho did, in very important games. So I understand that this may feel like a win for the Thomas Partey people, but I've seen us play in big games before, and Thomas Partey just absolute shit the bed as well. So not sure that I agree with this proves he's our most important player. Our most important players are Odegaard and Saka. Those are our most important players because without them, we can't function. But we function really, even Rice not even having a good game today, we could have still won if he was on the pitch. So I don't really agree with that. But I guess that this was a game for people that love Thomas Partey. They'll feel like this was a win for them. But I've seen us lose quite a few big games with Thomas Partey in there making mistakes like Jorginho's made. Taraka says, honestly, this isn't even that bad. There's still plenty of games left to play. I mean, this is why instant reactions are what they are. We'll get to player ratings in a second, but I do think we just need like a little combo. Instant reactions are for the instant reaction. So people will, have their reaction to the game, which is what it is. It's usually full of emotion and, all this kind of stuff. But, I don't think, if we had went into this game and before it happened, I would say like, we got a draw. I probably would have taken that because knowing where we're at and knowing that we played a game midweek that we played really well in, we beat Everton, Tottenham are another team that are at the top end of the table. Everybody thinks that they're the best team in the league, especially people that are sucking them off right now. Then we were lucky. We're good to get a draw, right? Because if they're so good, then a draw is fine, right? But we got a draw, we didn't lose, and the formula is always the same. You don't, at the very least, you don't lose to your top four people, top 6 people at home. You know, you want to win, obviously, but we've beaten Manchester United, we drew to Spurs, and there's nothing to me that says that we can't go to Tottenham and get something there. I don't think that's like somewhere where we can't get anything. So, you know, it's not the end of the world, but you know, instant reactions are what they are for a reason. You know, it's getting it off your chest of how you feel about the game. It is a disappointing result because you know that we had a very decent chance of a more than decent chance of winning it. You know, I think that's kind of where I am. I think we should have won. Like at 2-1, we should win. You know, we should go on and manage the game, but we have not unlocked that. And until we unlock that, we're not going to win anything. Nothing major. You know, we're not going to win a Premier League or anything like that. Not being able to manage games at 2-1, 10 seconds after that, you concede a goal. That's just the crazy thing about that is if it happens away from home, I don't think that we concede. There's something about being at home and mentality is just not there. Cafuzo says the in-game mentality is still shaky. We made a couple of changes and it disrupted us a little bit. Yeah. So Man City says Jess Arsenal should got James Madison this summer instead of going for Havertz. That was Mikel is thinking spending 65 million on a Chelsea flop. You know, fair enough. Fitz says sucking them off, wash out your mouth, girl. Tottenham are winning this title. Okay. You guys take a picture of that. So you drew a game against us and now you're winning the title. Winning the title doesn't mean drawing against Arsenal. You have to beat Manchester City, and Manchester City are leagues ahead of everybody, including you. So yeah, but have fun with that. Kevin says that was a reality check right there. We need to really step up if we are going to compete with Man City. I don't think anybody's near City, to be honest. Nobody. So yeah. Sanjeev says City is flying. Arsenal is slow down. Arsenal will be in the top 4. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the funny thing about rivals coming and kind of like, oh, well, you're way behind City. If we're way behind City and we're probably the closest ones to them, maybe Liverpool are close as well, and you're not, you know, then you're way behind as well. And so just Arsenal not winning anything, for me, I guess I don't get that much joy from it. You know, I feel like I'm more concerned about my team. My joy doesn't come from just my rivals not being able to beat Man City because neither can I. I think we all should be looking at Man City and saying, damn, we are really far behind. And that includes Spurs too. I don't know if this result means that, you know, Spurs are going to go to Man City and they have in the past actually been able to beat them. But this Spurs, you know, no Kane, you're not going to Man City and beating them this time. Mark, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, Jess, have a great day. Enjoy the wine later. I need to get going for now. No one should be getting a rating over 7 for me at best. Deep breathe, breath, and calm. I actually I actually think, you know, I don't know. I'm disappointed and I'm frustrated with the result, but it's nowhere near as devastating as I feel like some people. I think for some people it's just because it's Spurs. I understand that. I feel that. But to me it's not the end of the world. To me. Christopher says Liverpool is flying. They will beat Man City. No, they won't. No, they won't. Liverpool are good. Like, trust and believe. Like, they have rebuilt their midfield. They look good, you know, but I think there's a lot of I feel like there's like a lot of like early predictions and early things being said when we haven't even played 10 games yet. So let's just relax. I don't think Liverpool are going to Man City and getting anything. I don't think anybody is. I think Man City are well ahead of everybody. But yeah, maybe at this stage, Liverpool is probably the closest. So yeah, I'll give them that. Zich says we have 1 less point compared to last season after 6 games. People don't want to have that conversation yet, though. But let them get it out of their systems. It's like it's against Tottenham. So, you know, people are going to be upset and throwing their toys out and all that kind of stuff. But 1 point less than compared to last season after 6 games. And we played in the Champions League and played spectacularly, you know. It's really not. We're not in a crisis, but Arsenal fans love to panic about everything. Wake Up says Arteta needs some assistance in man management. Pep is very good at that. No wonder he lost his hair. Fair enough. Oh, I didn't even know Chelsea lost. I didn't even know Chelsea lost. Fair enough. Namal says a Liverpool will come second, I think. I think they're definitely in the top four. They're 100% in the top four. Like, I think because of their attack alone, they will make the top four, even if I still think they're a little shaky at the back. And they're playing in Europa League, so they can play like a rotated lineup and be fine. Like, I think they'll be relatively quite similar to what we were last season. Well, they'll be kind of in and around the title race, kind of keeping one eye on Europa League. But I still don't think anybody's near Manchester City. And then it just depends on the rest. I still think we're in the top four. Like, there's nothing that I've seen this season that makes me think that we're not. Are we in the title race? That's yet to be seen. We would have to really improve. But yeah. Let's see. Newman says Emery is a better manager than Arteta. His record proves it everywhere he went except for Arsenal. Fair enough. If we're still having Emery conversations in 2023, that's fine. Also, I mean, it's not like Arsenal didn't go to Chelsea and beat them. So like Emery beating them is it's fine. But I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the same kind of conversations every time we don't have a result that goes our way. The same conversations about Emery and Aubameyang and Guendouzi and, oh my gosh, this. And it's a little like tired. Don't you get tired? We're in a different space now. Carabo says we have to fight Man U and Tottenham for top four. I don't know about like maybe Manchester United. I will give you that. Maybe Manchester United, but definitely Tottenham will be in and around there because they haven't actually they don't have anything else to focus on, so they should actually make top four quite easily if they're about that life, especially since they're the best team in the league. So Nora says people are so reactionary, it's exhausting, and I tend to be quite emotional, but I'm having a hard time just getting up to be devastated about being 1 point, worse off than we were last season. Also being in the Champions League, I don't know. Paul says this has ruined my Sunday. Individual errors are unacceptable at this level, especially when you play for Arsenal. They don't seem to go away. They don't seem to go away. So that's something that needs to be really investigated because the individual errors at home are costing us. And we've had so many since the start of the season already. So many just unforced errors that like you just don't need to do. Like you just don't need to do. We largely kept Spurs from doing that much. I'm not saying that they didn't look dangerous on certain, things. And like David Raya had to make like one really good save. But if Jorginho doesn't shit the bed in the middle of the pitch, we probably win that game, so it's crazy. MD says today's loss is totally on the manager. Okay. Shane says Arteta's the worst Arsenal personnel today by far. Damn, y'all are really going in on Mikel Arteta. So is it Mikel's fault that Jesus like misses a wide open shot in the box that totally just kills off the game at 2-0? Answer that, because sometimes it is on the players. The thing is, like if Rice is injured and so is Thomas Partey, your only option is to bring in Jorginho. Is it Arteta's fault that Jorginho shits the bed in the middle pitch? I mean, I kind of get it, but like trying to blame everything on Arteta feels a little bit like a reach. I'm with Aman. It's everyone's fault. It's weird. Like, what were y'all watching? So let's go ahead and get into it. There's 333 of you guys in here. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. I love that somebody said this is a boring chat. The reason why it's boring is because there's not enough people, I think, having meltdowns. There's another stream for that, and it's the League Gunner channel. John Donut says, I'm going to be honest, about 90% of the loss today was on Arteta. I felt like he did more damage than the players. I think it's about 75%. I think it's 75% on the players and 25% on the manager. So we're in complete disagreement on that for sure, because I just can't blame Mikel Arteta for Jorginho's mistake. I can't, like, I can't. And the first 35 minutes, I know what I saw. We were totally dominant and for 35 minutes. And in those 35 minutes, Manchester City kills the game off. You know, Tottenham made mistakes that went unpunished by Arsenal, and we made a mistake and it was punished on the other end. So for me, like, I just have to look at the players more than the manager, even though I am frustrated by, maybe some of the decisions that he made in terms of like starting Eddie, playing Eddie for 90 minutes or 100 minutes. Also, like, you know, and maybe, I don't know, because we'll talk about it. Did he have other options to bring off of the bench? Like, because people are saying ESR and Reece Nelson should have came on earlier, but maybe Reece, but not ESR. I don't know. Let's see. Let's go ahead and get into these player ratings. Make sure you guys are smashing the likes. Rhea, I thought, had some dodgy moments back there in terms of his distribution. I think he, Tottenham's press in certain circumstances was quite good. I think they were pressing us in ways to make David Rhea kick it out. And he did a couple of times. He made a really good save on Brennan Johnson's shot. I mean, he was celebrating. He thought that was a goal. I thought it was a goal as well. So great save from him. I thought it was okay. But in terms of like, for somebody that, we were saying like, okay, we want to see him really be tested. I think largely like that was a performance that I feel like Ramsdale maybe would have made. I don't know, So I'm actually, going to give Rhea like a 5. Good save, but ultimately distribution wasn't good enough. It just wasn't. Drew says ESR should have started. He could get a good run in. He has pace on the wing and then sub in Nelson. Maybe. Let's see. Kevy Kev says Rhea 7.5. Great save. I think that's really high. Carabao says 7. Woolwich Gunner says 5. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking it's closer to 5. Matt G says 6. Boy says everyone was average. But that's the thing is like everybody was average. If Spurs played really well and we were average and it was still a draw and we probably still won the game, like I just feel like Arsenal just really need to like stop shooting themselves in the foot, because I would have loved to play average and then play the best football in the world apparently, and we still win the game. That's what's crazy to me is like we're at a point now where we could probably not play our best and still beat most teams. Yeah, we killed ourselves off. Nuances of Fate says Rhea was average today. Even his passing was off. I agree. Fan says 5.5 because the main thing, distribution, got worse throughout the match. Oben says Spurs didn't play really well. Arsenal always make excuse. I agree. Like, I agree with that. I'm sure you're like, you might be like a rival fan, but I watched the game and I didn't think they did anything fucking special. Like, I think we killed ourselves. I hate that about Arsenal. I really do. Like, it needs to stop. I'll name this account later. Says Rhea was a 6, poor for the first goal. Distribution wasn't great. Darker says Rhea was a 6 today. Sorry, his distribution was poor and he should have put the ball out for the corner for the first goal. Good point. Good point. I think he like slapped it forward instead of slapping it back. I think you're right. This was not a good game for Rhea. Yeah, he started off well, but I can see the English media having a little meal off of that. Boss J says every player gets a 5, Georgie, for the mistake. We're still going to go through it. What's the point of having the show if you're not going to go through all the ratings? Kevy Kev says Arsenal let Rhea down, in my opinion. Oh, okay. Oyul says we should have killed the game in the first 30 minutes. I fucking agree, man. Like, that's where I'm at. That is where I'm at. I will have nightmares about the Jesus chance, the Nketiah chance, and the Jorginho thing. Nightmares. Absolute nightmares. So yeah. All right. So Rhea, no, we don't really have to go too far into that, really. But he wasn't great. Ramsdale didn't play. White, I thought he made one really good stop where Rhea kind of like missed it, and then Ben defended quite well. But I thought in terms of like, he just looked tired, and I knew he was going to be tired because he looked tired against PSV. This is where I do think that I am devastated about that Timber injury because he was going to give us because just imagine if we could have had Timber in there today, having somebody of his quality to step in to a game like this, I think, would have been so good because we don't actually have the depth necessary on the right-hand side. We have just Ben and just Saliba, and everybody else is primarily left side. Tomiyasu is mostly left side. Zinchenko and Kivior are left side. So we are missing, like, Tommy can obviously play on the right, but there's a reason why he plays on the left. It's because he's better on that side. And so we have a little bit of a thing here where Ben, he looks tired, he's playing tired, and he did not have that great of a game today. But I don't think he did anything like super wrong either. Again, it's not his fault that Jorginho did what he did. Yeah, 5.5, 6. I can't give him more than that. 6. Like, I don't know. I love Ben, but it's like nothing really, it wasn't anything, you know? Um, it's tough. If anybody can name what Ben actually did specifically wrong from his side, that would be useful because I'm seeing like 4s and I'm trying to figure out like what did he do specifically that kept us from winning that game. Because I think if we're just going to give everybody a 4 because we're mad about the result, then I feel like that's disingenuous to the way that the game actually went. I thought he was okay. Like Drew says, I thought he was all right. And that's the thing too, is like, I feel like the ratings that we're going to get is as if we got battered 3-4-0 when we drew the game and we probably should have won it. There's some specific situations in that game where I feel like that's where the game was lost. But I don't actually think, like, our defense gave up 1 goal, really, because what are they going to do once Jorginho gives that ball away? So I think the defense, if you really want to look at them, you'll look at them like, okay, that first goal, that Tottenham score. Yeah, Raya should probably do better and not bat it back into, the path of a Tottenham player. Then they recirculate and then Madison cooks Saka. Maybe Saka should do better there. But what did Saliba, White, and Gabriel specifically do to deserve 4s? That's what I want to know because, I don't do ratings based on, oh, I don't like the game the way that it went, so everybody just gets a 4, even though we drew the game and we could have won it. That doesn't make sense to me. I'll name this account later, says 6 for White was average going forward, poor end product. His one-on-one defending is worrying. Shane says, let's hope we get top 4. It's back to the Wenger days. Again, like Zich was saying, we're 1 point off, 1 point less than we had at this stage last season, and we finished comfortably top 2. I'm having a hard time connecting with, we'll be so lucky if we get top 4 based off of this result. Simmer down. Matt G says 6 for White. He won us the pen. This is true. Paul says we are still unbeaten. Everyone just calm down. I'm having a hard time connecting with this emotional thing that people are doing right now. I'm disappointed. Trust, I am disappointed, but oh my gosh, we'll be so lucky to make top 4. Okay. Fine. Let's see. Boy says, all I know from this game is that the winner of this season's league did not play at the Emirates today. I mean, we knew that before a game was kicked. Was anybody under the impression that Manchester City was going to be out of the conversation and fall off? I don't know. I just feel like Manchester City have a vice grip on the league right now. Ishan says he was okay, but was not better than an average 5. Misjudged the drop of the ball on the first goal and was stretched a few times today. Saliba's judgment was off today, passing and committing off key. Fair enough. Let's see. Shane says, honestly, we have spent over 200 million and we look worse than last season. Just analyze how we are playing. I am analyzing how we're playing, and I feel like that's a gross overreaction, truly. Saying that we're look worse than last season. We definitely don't look exactly the same as we did last season, but also last season we didn't play up against we like the first team that opened up against us was PSV. We just been playing against deep block. We have not been at our sparkling best, but as bad as we've been for everybody that's crying about how bad we are, we're 1 point worse off than we were last season when everybody was saying that we were the best team on the planet. So clearly we're not that bad. So nothing is ever as good or as bad as you think. And if we're just going to jump off of a cliff now, then why are we like, what are we doing? It's 6 games into the season. We're unbeaten still. We played up against a good Spurs side and we drew the game. Like, damn, like what is this? Like, I get it, but like, no. And Comic Moth is so true. No one saw Arsenal coming last season. So yeah. Ben, you get a 6. Ben, you definitely get a 6. Not your best game, but nobody was really that good. Saliba thought he had an off game. Like somebody said before, he kind of misjudged some things. I thought his passing from the back, he gave the ball away a couple times. Like he's probably tired. And again, like this is why the Timber injury scares me a lot, is because on the left-hand side, I can see us rotating a bit because we have Tommy over there and we have Kivior. I know people are not like 100% on Kivior, but like I wouldn't be afraid to play him against, Brentford or Bournemouth, which are like our next 2 games. Wouldn't be afraid to play them, in those games. But we really don't have anybody on the right hand side that we can play. You can move Ben to the right, right back or right center half, but then who do you play at right back? You could play Tomiyasu, but then you need to rest Zinchenko. And Tomiyasu is our best player to play instead of Zinchenko. So at the back, we do have a little bit of a shortage there. And even with Thomas Partey coming back, we saw that wasn't like the vibe. Like we really don't want Thomas Partey playing there. So if we can get to January, that'd be great. But that Timber injury, I think out of everything that we're talking about, like Rice's little calf injury, Trossard, Martinelli, that is by far like the most crippling thing because, that right-hand side, we need a fresh Ben, we need a fresh Saliba. And he was supposed to be like the other player to fit into that group. And he's not there. It sucks so much. But yeah, Saliba for me gets a 5. I thought he was, I don't know, like he just wasn't at his sparkling best. He did some good things, he did some poor things, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I feel bad now. 5.5. I don't know. It just wasn't great. It just wasn't great from him. Vesper says Saliba was poor today. Let's be honest. And Kedia's lawyer says 6.5 for me. Malb says a 5. It's interesting because you gave Ben White a 4, but you gave Saliba a 5. But I felt like Saliba was worse than White. Amon says Saliba's passing was awful, but his defending was good, so 5.5. Shane says he did have some good, like he had one where he, like I can't remember, but I do remember Saliba having some good interventions. I just thought maybe on the ball he didn't have the best game, so it's tough. It's tough. It was mixed for everybody. I think everybody was kind of like just trying to get through that game. Shane's, yeah, I'm tired of talking about Kai Havertz right now. Inkesh says, you guys just okay. Zitch says 5.5 for Saliba. Kev says 6.5. I'll name this account later. Says Saliba 7. The 1v1 defending was exceptional. A few misplaced passes, but he was good overall. Fair enough. I like that. Drew says 6. So let's see. Philip says, Jess, after last season, I'm enjoying not being as invested into the results this season, fighting for second with Liverpool, in my opinion, hoping we can recover against Brentford. I think we can. Like, I don't know. I guess I agree with you. Like, I'm having a hard time investing so much emotion so early on in the season when nothing has really happened yet. Where we went through an entire season of being totally sure we were going to win it or, whatever. And just like the emotional damage at the end of the season is making me like, if you've learned anything from last season, is that the beginning means fuck all. Like the beginning actually means absolutely nothing. It's how you grow through the season. And if this is how we're starting with some of the injuries that we have, knowing some players are going to come back in, then I'm having a hard time like getting emotionally like distraught over being unbeaten. What are we sitting? Like, are we in 5th? Like, where are we in the standings? We're 5th. Yeah. So we're 5th, drawn on points with Tottenham, and we haven't lost a game yet. We played 2 top 6 teams so far. Then we have Brentford and Bournemouth coming up next. Just having a difficult time connecting with the panic just yet. Sorry. Sorry if you need that, but I don't have it. I don't have it for you. Saliba at a 5.5. Gabriel, thought it was all right. I don't know. I don't think Gabriel did anything wrong today. I can't think of anything. I think he's constantly on the side that's ever changing, that's always different. And I think for the most part, I didn't really see them get that much joy on. I'm really struggling to find anything that Gabriel really did wrong, but I'll just give him a 6. He was a part of a defense that gave up 2 goals, but I'm not seeing anything that he did too badly. Zich said, as well as our 2 options in DM are also injured. Fan says, in my opinion, he was our best defender today. Malv says our best player, Gabby, gets a 7. Okay, so people were saying what I was saying. I just didn't see Gabriel do much wrong. Matt G says Gabriel was our best defender, a 7. Zich says Gabriel did nothing wrong, 6.5. Cosmic Moss says Gabriel 6. Can't think of what he did. It's nothing he did wrong, nothing he did. There's nothing there. He just. I think people have to remember that largely what Spurs had was the mistake that Jorginho made. That really, I think if that doesn't happen and we win the game, we're not some of these conversations are not having. I think that is a huge moment that he deserves some real, he needs to be apologizing to the team right now because that is catastrophic. Is largely, even though we weren't playing amazing, we weren't on the ropes at any point in that game. Shake says 7. Piso, sorry, says 6.5. I'll name this account later, says 6 for Gabriel. It's a solid performance. It was what it was. He didn't do anything wrong. He was just chilling, Let's keep going. Weirdly, Tommy didn't play. Didn't love that. Zinchenko, good moments, some sloppy moments in possession. I think, I want to see more of Tomiyasu soon. I just think with Arsenal being, especially being a little bit clumsy at home, I would like to see a game with Tomiyasu at home, to see if that changes anything in terms of the goals that we give up. I just feel like I would love to see some clean sheets and for us to really firm things up and stop the mistakes. Tommy makes the mistakes, but something about being in possession and then just giving away a ball just under little to no pressure, and that puts us on the back foot, really rubs me the wrong way. I thought, he had one against PSV that I was if he does that against Spurs, we'll be punished. And he had 1 or 2 against, Spurs where I thought, I just need you to be just a little bit less, I need you to really concentrate on the ball because you have a lot of it and you get into these really dangerous positions where when we get free, it's so good for us. But if you lose it there, we are fucked. And I'm craving for a little bit of solidity and a little bit of safety back there. So for me, Zinchenko, I don't think he did anything massively wrong, but I also just feel I want to see something a little bit different, I think. So I'm going to give him a 5.5, just nothing really, but it's something that's making me feel like Arsenal would really benefit from having just something a little bit more sturdy in that position. Drew says 7, 5 for Zinchenko. He struggled because he had no pace to support him on the wing. Darker than Blue says we desperately need clean sheets. Both goals conceded were just silly mistakes that could have been prevented. Hal says Gabriel didn't defend that second goal very well against Son. I'm so sorry, but I'm not blaming anybody for that second goal because Son is great on the counterattack. Not a single defender in the world is stopping him. I'm so sorry. That is his bread and butter. And when you're in a complete position of dominance and possession, when you're totally not under any threat whatsoever, and your DM stops the ball underneath his foot and gets, the ball just gets taken from him and they're clearing on goal. I'm sorry. I'm not blaming Gabriel at all for that. I'm sorry. I cannot. It is a total Jorginho mistake. He has to hold his hands up. There's nothing that I can blame anybody else for, period. Zitch says Zinni 6, typical Zinni performance, some passing and control, some loose passes as well. Natalie says we didn't get enough from Zinni, 5.5. John Donut says 5. Yeah, like the thing about Zinni is like I love Zinni, but I also feel like we're getting into a stage with Zinni where not every game is a Zinni game. You know, I think we need to just focus on winning games, keeping the other team from scoring, and then if we score 1, 2 goals, that's fine. Like we're in a different phase now where I'm actually not that concerned about how we're doing it anymore. I'm just concerned about doing it. And he just, for me, is like I feel like his influence is still there, but I actually think we've progressed so far where it's like even Tomiyasu being in the game, we're still quite dominant. Not as dominant, but we're more secure at the back. And so I love Tommy and I would love to see more of him, but he was all right. Um, he was okay. And for people saying like, Malb says, Kulu didn't do anything on his side. Again, they didn't really have to do anything. Like we very much so gave them that game. But you know, I don't know. I love Zinni, but no. I forgot what I was gonna say. There was something else I was gonna say, but maybe it'll come to me in a second. Kivior, you didn't play. Whoa. Okay. I'm so sorry, but that one mistake just it's got to be like a 2 because you were only in there for one half. And, you know, the thing about Jorginho is that, you know, he's been relatively good for us, you know, for the most part. But you know, his experience is what we're supposed to be getting from him. And for us to score the penalty, like it wasn't like we were on the ropes and he made the mistake. He makes it literally like seconds. Like we didn't even fully I wasn't even fully like done celebrating the penalty before we had already conceded. That is how quick that goal came. It was like on the next possession. And so his experience is what we're supposed to be getting from him. And that was just terrible, like catastrophically bad by Jorginho. And I cannot get over it. It's the reason why we lost the game. You know, if you have to, like, this is why when people are like, oh, I blame Arteta 90%. I don't know how you can blame Arteta because we're 2-1 up and Jorginho just like shits the bed. Like, nah, man. 2. Nah, man. Nah. Nah, man. That's it. That was the mistake. And again, the biggest thing that stands out to me in this game is that we made them make 2 catastrophic mistakes at the back. And they didn't get punished for either of those. But the one mistake that we made at the back, we were punished so harshly for it. And that is the story of Arsenal. We have got to be more ruthless. We cannot, like, at 1-0, at 2-1, lose concentration. We are just so immature in moments like that. Damn, I cannot get over that. Fan says, after you did that, my head was on Mars. Like, I really had a difficult time, like, you know, being excited, like getting back into the game after that point. I couldn't. Like, I couldn't. I couldn't. Like, it's just I couldn't. And yeah, like I'm not saying Arteta has no blame, but when I say it's 75% on the players and 25% on the manager, that I'm not going to like change. Like I will not like I cannot unsee what I saw in that game where I saw Jesus miss a wide open opportunity. I saw Nketiah get the ball and win it. Like Adogi gives it to him. Like if let me stop because I'm about like if Zinchenko turns around and blindly passes it back to Gabriel and it doesn't get there and Son gets that ball, he is either putting it in the back of the net or putting it on a plate for whoever's standing there on the back post. And Eddie decides to try to shoot at a very like you are not Harry Kane. You are never going to score from that angle. Why are you not passing that? Like they punish us for that. Anybody punishes for that. Fucking Bournemouth would punish us for that. Like, we did not do it. If Odegaard tries to receive the ball from Raya and fucking Madison picks it off of Odegaard. He is just passing that into the back of the net, not kicking it over the bar. So when I see those three incidents that are massive in terms of the context of the game, I cannot blame Mikel Arteta for that. I can blame him for some of the things, maybe substitutions, maybe starting Eddie to begin with. But these players have to start playing, okay? I can't. They have to start playing. They have to. They have to start taking responsibility, okay? People can't be holding their hands. They have to take responsibility for that. I'll name this account later, says one for Jorginho. The mistake was bad enough. He was awful after the error. He looked like he had no legs and was getting overrun in midfield. Yeah. People are saying Trossard is injured, had a knock. Yeah, we knew that before the game too. That he was injured. Let's just hope that he comes back soon. Martinelli comes back soon. We also have an international break in October, so that might give us a chance to get Partey back, Martinelli back, hopefully Trossard back and start again. But we do have Brentford and Bournemouth, so those are two games that we should be winning, So there you go. Social Join says Eddie is not good enough. We'll get to that. But yeah, 1-2 for Jorginho. I mean, that is a catastrophe. It reminds me of the pass back that he made for Chelsea against us. It's just stupid. What are you doing? Sorry, I love Jorginho, but nah. Declan Rice, not his best game. I think some people are going overboard with it. As they always do. Declan Rice has largely been our player of the season since the start, and he's been fantastic. And he has been managing a calf injury, which would kind of explain some of it, but he's been largely our best player. And again, so with Odegaard, with players like that are amazing players, one game doesn't mean that we should have never bought them. And I've already seen in the chat, shouldn't have bought him. He's just so average. He's just so shit. He's just so that. But I didn't see really anything that Rice did where it was his fault that's the reason why we weren't winning that game. And so players have poor games. And if he's been managing an injury, I can understand it more. But I'm just going to give him like a 5.5. Like, I don't think he did anything massively wrong, but it wasn't his best game. But all in all, I think as fans, and like maybe all fan bases do this, but if a player is not having their best game, we tend to be like, oh, they're not a great player. They're shit. They're this and that. When you just forget everything else that they've done. I find that very strange. I think Declan Rice has been an amazing signing for us, but at Arsenal, it just seems like if you're not perfect every single game, they want your head on a spike, and that's weird. Carabao says Rice was a solid 5. Leg says agree with Rice being overhyped this early in the season, 5 rating. I didn't say that, so maybe somebody else said that. I don't think he's been overhyped. He's literally been probably our player of the season so far. So Natalie says we can't afford any more injuries. I hope Rice recovers quickly, 6. And again, like, what do you expect a DM to do? I still feel like, we bought Declan Rice. He's a DM. He's playing in the 6th position. And people are mad because he hasn't scored goals and got assists. He has scored a goal, but even Eddie robbed him of an assist. Like, he's actually created quite a few chances and people just haven't put those away. He's stopped transitions. He's been good defensively. What the fuck do you expect a DM to do? And why would you be upset about what he's done so far? We're trying to change what a DM is because he's largely been doing exactly what we want him to do. And he's been really good so far. And people are just like, they want more. It's so strange. And also, get over the Thomas Partey thing. The reason why he's been replaced by Declan Rice is because in big games like this one, he shit the bed just like everybody else. So as good as he is, this is not some like, oh, well, see, Thomas Partey would have done better. You guys forget when Thomas Partey was walking off the pitch in the middle of a North London derby, like he had lost his effing brain? Sorry, but like, this is not the day to get into that. Cosmic Moss says Rice 5 out of 5 or 5.5. I agree. Malb says about a 5. Yeah, about a 5. Yeah, like he was average like everybody else. I'll name this account later, says Rice 5 for me. His passing ability is limited. This is untrue. Struggles to pass through the lines. That is untrue. And help the team progress the pitch. Not like, okay. This is so untrue. It's actually ridiculous. He's actually been our most progressive player this entire season. He's been our most progressive player this entire season. If you actually look at the statistics, not only from a ball carrying standpoint, but progressive passes, he's been our most progressive player. It is an absolute lie that he does not pass the ball forward and he only passes it sideways. And this just I just feel like people love Thomas so much that they're offended by Declan Rice. So they're trying to figure out a way that like Declan Rice is not doing the same things as Thomas Partey. Go back and watch the run-in last season, watch the West Ham game, the Southampton game, and Man City. That's all. That's the reason why he's been replaced. Sorry. Like, I'm tired of that. Like, I really am. World Boss says, as for rice, when you rush cooking rice, it does not come out nice and fluffy. It comes out hard and makes you shit yourself. Let's give Rice a pass. He's been brilliant since his arrival. I agree. I agree. I agree. I agree. The Comic Moth says Partey's passing at the end of last season. People, they believe what they want to believe. Like, they love Partey so much that they hate Rice in, like, they just hate him because they love Partey so much. Why? Like, he's been brilliant for us so far. Like, not perfect, but brilliant. And like, I'm so sorry, but like, if you look at the statistics, he's been our most progressive passer and our most progressive carrier. And so the idea that he just passes sideways and backwards, and that's why we're not, like, he played against PSV. We scored 4 goals and we're fantastic, and he was passing the ball between the lines perfectly. I think there's a different reason why we're not scoring goals and we're not taking control of our chances. It doesn't have anything to do with Rice. Thomas Partey is great, you know, but this to me is not a win for Thomas Partey in any way. Sorry. Legs Rooney says Partey was on fire at the start of last season. He ran out of legs, age, and injury history. Partey is ahead of Jorginho 100%. So yeah, and Zich, you're absolutely correct. Partey is typically injured for our big games. So no. And no stats, these stats can't be manipulated. Like, you guys keep saying that Rice does not pass forward and he doesn't progress the ball and he doesn't find passes in between the lines. But not only am I watching the games and seeing him do it, if you watch all of his comps, there's balls in between the lines to the likes of Saka, to Jesus, to Nketiah, to everybody. What they do with those passes is none of his concern, really. And the stats back it up. So again, like, it's just weird that people are like, Rice is not passing the ball forward, and that's why you need Thomas Partey. All right. And I'm not convinced that we win that game if he's in the game. I'm not. So there you go. Rice 5.5. Odegaard, not his best game. I think he started off really well again. I think the goal was to win the game in those first 40 minutes because we were pressing, we were on them. Odegaard won the ball so many times in that first half, in those first 35 minutes with Jesus and Saka. I mean, I do think we need to, like, people need to rewatch the game. I know emotions take over, but like, if you watch the first half, we were pressing them really well, and we really should have taken advantage of some of those opportunities where we made them make mistakes. And Odegaard was a big part of that. You know, he wasn't as influential, but, you know, even I think for Saka's goal, like, he was in that. And for all of our like moves where we got into their box and got shots and stuff like that, he was involved with those. So it wasn't his most influential game in terms of like he didn't score any goals or anything like that. And he did fall away in the second half. But I think, like you guys said, like, not having Rice there changes things for him because there's not somebody stopping those transitions and getting the ball quickly to him. And that we just weren't able to sustain any sort of possession or anything. We were really struggling in the second half, and he was tired, and it was obvious, you know, 3 games in a week where usually he would have not played midweek because we would have played Vieira or played, you know, a bunch of the squad players. He played like almost the entire game, or he did play the entire game against PSV. He played the entire game against Everton. And then he was in a very like stressful North London derby a couple of days later and gave absolutely everything in those first 40 minutes. And we could not put the game to bed. So I'm just going to give him like a 6. It wasn't his best game, but I'm definitely not about to go back and say that he's so overrated and all that kind of stuff because that's just lame. Philip says, without Rice there, you have nothing to mop up the butter chicken. Things get sloppy. I'll name this account later. Says Rice passes the ball forward, just not with the same quality and success Partey does. Nobody is saying Partey is perfect. That is a straw man argument. I just feel like even bringing Partey into the conversation when we've kind of seen what he's like in big matches doesn't line up to me. That's just where I'm at with it. It's like Rice has a poor game and people start bringing up Partey, and you said that Partey's not perfect either. So why are we even bringing up Partey? Like, I don't know. It's weird. Darker the Blue says Odegaard was a 5 today. More to come in the season. I agree. Fan says O was a 6. His pressing helped a lot during the first half. However, he gave away the ball away a couple times. Zich says Odegaard 5.5. Good in the first 30 to 40 minutes, faded quickly afterwards. Geek says if Partey was fit, I think we would have seen Partey, Rice, Odegaard in our midfield today. Odegaard was a 6.5. Yeah. Let's see. Barry Burns says rewatch will show if we capitalize on Jesus' chance. I don't think they come back. We were so on it in the first 35 minutes, but we got shook by their goal and Rice going off. And I think it's like not even like we started cruising towards halftime, and it was like you could just feel that the goal was coming because we started getting a little bit sloppy. You could tell like our mind was like we were mentally already in the locker room, and that's just frustrating to see because we do it all the time. We do it all the time. Let's see. Barry says Odie did add calmness late in the match in trying to build play from deep and making a good option for the players to clear their lines. The funny thing about saying that this is a new contract curse is that he signed it on September 1st and it's September 24th. So that would mean that he would have played poor against PSV and Everton as well. So no, it's not new contract curse because he signed it on September 1st. It was announced the other day. The tropes for me, Saka and Odegaard have signed new deals, and it's not an Aubameyang or Ozil thing whatsoever. Their work rate has not stopped, even if they're not having great games individually. So that's just a nonsense trope, really. They've been great, since they've signed new deals. Like I'm not understanding the comparison. Social Join says Partey bossed the game last season. Rice did not. That's the facts. You're ranting about your preference. Stick to the facts. Okay, he bossed the game, but was he in a team where everybody was pretty much at 5s and 6s, and then he was just miraculously the only one playing well? So the facts are that everybody was poor in this game. So I've actually never witnessed a game where Arsenal as a team played poorly and Partey was the difference between winning and losing. Actually, when the team drops as a whole, he actually becomes the worst player on the team. So you can say that he bossed that game last season, but Rice bossed the game against Manchester United. I don't understand why consistently bringing up Thomas Partey in the context of Rice is not going to make Rice not the starting number 6 in this team. I do think as a fan base, we need to accept that Thomas Partey has been replaced. We spent 105 million on Declan Rice, and there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is largely because of what happened at the back end of last season, the back end of the season before, which is he can play well throughout the entire season and then absolutely lose his mind at the end of it when we really need him, or be unavailable due to injuries. So consistently bringing Rice up in bringing Partey up in the context of Rice is not going to make Partey get his position back. He had 3 seasons with no competition whatsoever and was never really the difference between us winning and losing when the entire team was playing poorly. So why is Rice being like, oh, you need to be the difference? That was never the requirement for Thomas Partey. Sorry, like continuously bringing it up is so annoying because it's almost like people cannot see with their eyes wide open. He's a great player, but he was never going to help us win anything. We had 3 seasons of him. As good as he was either unavailable when it mattered or played poorly when it mattered. So Rice not having a great game today is not some big win for Thomas Partey because he's not even available to come into the game, which just furthers the point. He's not available. Get over it. Like, move on from it. Like, I don't understand why we're still talking about it. Fabio Vieira, not his best game either. I think, he, again, another player that was good in the first 35 to 40 minutes and then faded. He might have, like, I don't know if he has an injury or not, but he came off at halftime. I don't actually think the substitution for Fabio Vieira to Havertz actually changed much. I think we still largely, like, we're kind of like in the same mode. So for me, I'm just going to give, Fabio Vieira a 5. Like everybody else on the team, he was just kind of there and then faded. So there you go. Fabio was a 5.5. Let's see. Blaze says, I always said we are fanboys of Player FC who love players more than Arsenal. That's just, yeah. I don't get it. I don't get it, because sentiment will say that we need to just continue on with Thomas Partey because he's a great player. But I think it's pretty clear if you look at who's been replaced, you can see who I think the club view as places or margins that we need to look at in order to get to the next level. And so, from my perspective, it's kind of like, I want to give Raya and Rice a true opportunity. Like, Ramsdale and Thomas Partey have had like 3 seasons. So we've seen what they can do and where they can take us. So now Arsenal want to see Raya, and they also want to see Rice. Ramsdale and Partey are still in the team to win their spots back. But I just don't really feel like we're giving it a true chance, because we're so desperate to be emotionally attached to certain players than actually realizing that, like, some of our players need to be upgraded upon because they can only take us so far. And if that becomes Odegaard at some point, where Odegaard is my favorite player, if that becomes Odegaard at some point, but if you've been on this channel long enough, you will know that I was one of Thomas Partey's biggest fans for the first 2 seasons, because I felt like he was a fantastic player. And I still do think that he's a very good player. If you've been here, you know that every time he got injured, I backed him. When he had bad games, I said, just give him more time. He just needs to be able to adapt to the Premier League. When he came out and said from his own mouth that since he had been at Arsenal, he had been a 4 out of 10, still backed him. But last season was it, because we were in the middle of the run-in and he just kind of shit the bed. And for me, that was kind of the last straw, because it's been 3 years. He's been here long enough where we can see how far he can take us. So I'll never be disappointed with the club for trying to figure out a way to increase our ability to win on the margins. So I like Thomas Partey, but maybe he's not the thing that's going to take us there. Like Ramsdale, maybe he's not the reason that's going to take us there. But Raya and Rice not having their best games doesn't mean that it's some big win for players that have had 3 seasons to help us win something and they haven't. So it's just boring at this point. I'll name this account later. Says Fabio Vieira is a 5 for me. Didn't have much of an impact. Didn't deserve to be taken off. The entire midfield struggled. I agree. It was just one of those things where everybody was really poor, right? Kid says, big up, Jess. Thank you so much. Says, it's a point nonetheless. We didn't lose even with a depleted squad. Our fans are toxic and it's embarrassing, all the meltdowns. I expect a meltdown anytime that, we don't. At this point, it's a meltdown if we don't get a point or we don't get 3 points in any game. Meltdown. Doesn't matter if it's, Brighton, Everton, Bournemouth, anything, because we're at the point now where we feel like we should be fighting for titles. So every point matters. And then it exacerbates it if it's Manchester United or Spurs. It just does, so I expect the meltdown, but I also expect when you come down from the meltdown to realize that we're only 1 point worse off than we were last season at this stage. And as bad as we've been, since everybody thinks we've been so poor, that's not bad. We're still unbeaten and we can still get better from here. No Martinelli, no Thomas Partey, since people are telling me he's our best player, so no Trossard. So we just kind of have to, I think, take that point. And, Arsenal, I think we'll get better from here in terms of being able to manage 3 games a week. This is the first time this team is being asked to play 3 games a week in terms of our starters playing. They're going to have to get used to it. So there might be some teething issues here. They played really well for the first 35 to 40 minutes, but they really just fell away, so they'll learn a big lesson, you know, they'll learn a big lesson from this, I think, hopefully. World Boss says, facts, Jess, what makes you think Partey is the answer when he's gone missing when we need him the most? Shaking my head. Dama says, people really think Arsenal has elite players. I don't think so. Fan says, Partey will always shit the bed at the last part of the season. Yo-Yo says, some of us believe Arteta is the one that ultimately needs to be upgraded upon, but it is what it is. Geeks of Muckleby says, we have to remember today, if fit, Partey, Timber, and Martinelli or Trossard should have started. That changes us a lot. I just didn't expect a very good game for us. I expected us to be a little raggedy from playing Everton and PSV and then having to come into a North London derby against a team that's not playing midweek. They're not playing any other games. They have nothing else to worry about but this game. And we had other things to worry about. So I do think that, I expected a poor performance, but what I didn't expect is for Jorginho to give the ball away after 10 seconds after we score our second goal. That for me was the nail in the coffin. I just can't get over it. Fan says, I do agree that he didn't need to be taken off at half. Malb says Partey missed 14 big games. We should have sold him in the summer. Animate says it's a meltdown because a lot of Arsenal fans have said they will batter Tottenham, and a lot of them said that they would batter us. It came both ways. It went both ways. I think Tottenham coming to us in their best ever season, the best Tottenham team that we've ever seen. A lot of them came in saying that Maddison was clear, Basuma was clear, everybody in their team was clear. They rested all week and they still got a draw. And it was mostly based off of the fact that Arsenal made a big mistake. So, I mean, it goes both ways, but they will feel better about this because all in all, no matter how it's cut or anything, there's never any expectations on Tottenham but to play good football. And for Arsenal, it's to win. So I expect us to get more of the banter and all that kind of stuff. We're also at home, so I understand that. But, the meltdown from the fans, the media feed off of that, so for the next couple of days, the media will talk about it and then they'll be upset by it. But really, it comes from you guys being upset and not having it any sort of control whatsoever. Because, going out there and saying Martin Odegaard is shit, Saka's shit, Jesus is shit, Arteta's the worst, da-da-da-da. The media are just going to echo that. You guys know that they watch this stuff and look at Twitter. That's where they get everything, by the way. They look at Twitter and see what we're saying, and then they just regurgitate it, So there you go. Let's see. Burns says, question, is it worrying that reports from the ground said Saka was signaling to the bench for ages up to 20 minutes before he was subbed off? I have to look at that. To be honest, I didn't see it, and I haven't read anything or heard anything yet. But if that's the case, then it is worrying. I do think that we are going to probably hit a little bit of an injury crisis here because we have a lot of players with a lot of minutes in their legs, and that's just what happens. When it rains, it pours. We're going to have injuries every single week. Saka has been due a break, and I hate to say it, but when we were having that conversation about being worried about the Achilles injury that Saka had during international break, when I think somebody from England probably leaked that information, and Mikel Arteta came out and said he's fine, everybody's playing with injuries, basically we got it. The first thing that I said was he better not get a long-term injury because that is going to come back to bite you. There's been chances to rest Saka and we haven't taken them. And so if he does have an injury and he was signaling and he does have a bad injury, then that ultimately is going to come down to the club because he's been playing with the injury for a long time. And basically a lot of the fans have said, hopefully the club knows what they're doing. We're just going to say the club has gotten it right. So yeah. Let's see. Yo-Yo says, I predicted injuries between the two international breaks. Arteta has to earn his coin. Can't have perfect settings. I kind of agree with that too, though. Let's see. Social Join says, our bench was whack. None of those players step up in the level, elevate the team. also have to remember that like the bench would not have been that had we had Martinelli and Trossard there. Like Thomas Partey should have been there, but again, your boy is injured as usual. So it's kind of like, and you also don't have Timber. So that should have been the bench. Like the bench should have been, probably like Eddie shouldn't have been on the pitch. Trossard should have been on the bench or on the pitch. And then you should have had like Thomas Partey, So for me, like I can't really be upset by the bench when the bench is what it is because players are injured. We have multiple injuries right now. So we just have to suck it up though. Let's keep going though, because we're just like saying whatever now. Kai Havertz, I could probably just leave this 5 up here. There is no difference between Fabio Vieira and Kai Havertz. I think everybody just kind of played at the same level. And so, I know that people want to focus on Kai Havertz. What I'll say again is that, like, I know that there's people are really upset about the Kai Havertz signing. So anytime we don't win a game, it's his fault, or that's the main focus. As disappointed as I am about us spending the $65 million on Kai Havertz and not somebody else, I just don't think he's going to be a focus for me personally, because my main focus is Eddie playing 100 minutes, Jorginho making the huge mistake. For me, those are kind of the cardinal sins there. I think there was really no difference between Fabio Vieira and Kai Havertz today. And as this to me, this is not a why did we buy Kai Havertz, day. It's a why the F couldn't we just hold on to the ball right after we scored that second goal conversation. But I'll give him a 5. It is what it is. He didn't do anything, but ultimately this isn't a, oh my God, Kai Havertz. I didn't see anything that he necessarily did really wrong, but there wasn't anything that he did anyway. So yeah. Boy says Partey for 1 more month, Trossard and Martinelli hopefully in a week. Yo-Yo says there should be a difference between the two. That's the issue for me, not to make him a scapegoat, but Kai needs to start repaying the manager's faith. Exactly. And I love that you said that, because every game for me is not a, oh my God, we bought Kai Havertz game, but it's a side conversation that will continue to roar on. Maybe not for me personally, but for other people, because he is playing. And he's not really changing the game. And so, yeah, there's that. There definitely is that. Ivy says Kai was in a good position, but his shot was off the mark. I remember that. I'll name this account later. Says Cavertz, might as well. Cavertz was a 5, and Havertz's agenda from the fan base is bullying and disgusting. Malb says I would have given him a score, but when he came on, running up to Son and hugging and laughing in the North London derby before the start of the game, second half, who is that? Havertz? Yikes. Social Join says every team has injuries. Players had to step up. Havertz's best stats are tackling. Play him as a DM left back. That 65 million is not a level raiser. That's my concern. What does he do? Boy says Havertz was average like everyone else today. He needs to get more comfortable with dropping into half spaces like Odegaard. Legs Arani says Legs Aruni says Kai signing needs to be scrutinized. The guys watch. It's already been scrutinized though. That's the thing. It's like by many, it's already been labeled as a flop signing, one of the worst signings of the season. So we've already kind of exacerbated that aspect of things. So continuing to talk about it, even when it's not a main conversation to have in a game, for me, it's long, it's tired. So I'm just like, it is what it is. In the side parts of the side conversations, it's definitely something that's like, why did we do it? Why did we have to do it? It's there now though. So, it's not a level raiser. There were so many other players that we could have went for that could have either been less or the same. Matthias Nunes or Nunez, Soboslai, Alexis McAllister, Madison. There's so many other players that we could have went for, even ones that were league proven, and we went for him. And so I can understand what Arteta's trying to do with him from a tactical standpoint. But I think for a team that people are largely expecting to go to the next level, that's been pretty much like kept us the same, if not a little bit worse because Xhaka was so good last season. So I understand that that's going to continuously be a conversation. For me personally, in a player ratings, when I see some other major glaring issues, I won't focus on it. But, what can you do? Um, yeah, there you go. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with Kai Havertz. It is what it is. Hoping it works, but early signs for me says that, you know, Arsenal could have done with just like a center midfielder, somebody that could score goals but also defend, but plays the position naturally. We're trying to create a midfielder out of somebody that kind of can play number 10, but like we're not really playing him as number 10. So it's an odd fit right now. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I'll remove this really quick because somebody asked me a question about did we replace Xhaka? I think no, not in terms of like the one thing that stands out to me more than Kai Havertz just not being the same player in terms of the way that they play is the types of players that they are as people. I think when you replace, like, we already lack leadership in this team. I think, we don't have a lot of experience and we lack leaders, true leaders that you can count on day in and day out. I think Odegaard is a good leader. I think, Xhaka was a good leader. I think Jesus tries to lead, but sometimes gets caught up in the emotion. But really, Arsenal lack leadership and experience. And so, and you remove somebody like Xhaka from the team and replace him with somebody that's short of confidence, is probably at the lowest level that he's ever been at in his career, and is a shy and quiet individual, you have taken away something that needed to be replaced. And so we've added Rice, but we really needed to like add more. Like it would have been better, I think, to add somebody that at the very least was not at a low ebb, because this team is already probably has some players that are still recovering from the disappointment of last season. And so they're coming into the season maybe a little bit uneasy. You could see we were a little tight in the first 5 games, not really playing our football. And then you added somebody that like Xhaka was like a load-bearing wall for us in terms of leadership and experience and the way that he was playing. And you replace that load-bearing wall with somebody that cannot hold us up. And so it's just that concerns me more than anything, because from a playing standpoint, I think, we've been okay. I could see Havertz getting better, but where I really like him, kind of like the personality we did not replace. And that is really what we needed more than anything, is like, we need people that are going to go out there and change the game. We're going to need people that can be relied upon. We need somebody who's not going to hide. We need somebody that's going to be like, Xhaka was such a main character for us last season. We replaced him with somebody that's kind of like a luxury at this stage. It's tough. Like that for me, like, and again, like people are like, well, what about Rice? Rice is like substituting Partey, like they're like for like, so we just like we have the same amount like there, but you've still lost Xhaka, you still lost Xhaka, and Partey was more of like an experience player. I think Rice is more of a leader player, so you kind of get that, but there's just Xhaka was just too big of a personality to replace like with somebody on like the lowest ebb of their life. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just a weird decision to make, for Arsenal. A team that already has a lot of young players in the team that are just kind of learning, you know. Now Emil Smith Rowe, I thought he had a decent little cameo. Not much to talk about, but I'm just gonna give him like a little. I'm actually gonna give him a little bit higher than that. I'm gonna give him a little 6. I think he was energetic. He tried to get stuck in, but ultimately the team was playing so bad at that point that like he couldn't really do anything. So, I'll just give him a little 6. Richie Rabbit says, and saying it was never going to work out is pure hindsight. Richie Rabbit says 95% is a gamble. Emilio says, Jess, are you worried about Liverpool? They look back now. Arsenal will lose to Newcastle, Liverpool City this season. Have you been watching Newcastle play? Because if you, first of all, like if you've been watching Newcastle play, then you should back us to beat them. They haven't been that great this season. So yeah, like I still think we'll beat Liverpool, or not Liverpool. We'll beat Newcastle. Like, I don't know. I can't get too into, are you worried about so and so? Because I mean, we beat Newcastle last season. They don't look any better than they did last season. So why would we lose to Newcastle? We didn't lose to them last season. So take Newcastle out. Yeah, we probably will lose to City, but everybody's going to lose to City. And Liverpool, I don't think it's a 100% chance that we cannot beat them. Um, Even if they've gotten better, it doesn't mean that we're going to lose every single game. So at this stage, I can't get into the oh my god, we're going to lose to all these teams because we didn't beat Spurs. You know, World Boss says, Jess, do you think it's time to start the likes of ESR and Nelson so a few starters can get a rest? I mean, Brentford and Bournemouth coming up, I need to see some rotated lineups, man. Obviously, like not fully rotated, but I need to see, it's going to be enforced anyway because we're already going to have some injuries. But I need to see Reece Nelson in there, like maybe ESR in there, Tomiyasu. Can we play Tomiyasu, please? There definitely needs to be some rotation, but because we're already suffering from injuries, it's going to be more difficult. So let's see who's injured and who's not fully. But yeah, I would like to see against Brentford and against Bournemouth some good rotation before we go back into two more difficult games in Manchester City and Chelsea. So yeah. Richie Rabbit says, I think Arteta has to start a game with ESR soon, hopefully this week. Brentford has to be the game. Has to be. Tyro says, Odegaard, Xhaka, Partey, Jorginho, Zinchenko, 5 international captains in the first team last season. Don't buy this lack of leadership narrative. I do. I do. What they do internationally doesn't have anything to do with what they do from a club standpoint. For me, it's just, Odegaard is a leader, but what do you feel in your spirit? What's happening on paper and what you feel in your spirit is two different things. Zinchenko for me is not a leader. He's a good player, and he's probably the best player on Ukraine, so he ends up retroactively being the captain. Sometimes that happens on international teams. Partey is experienced, and he's probably the best team for Ghana, but is he actually a leader? No. Like, think about how they were for their past teams. At Atletico, Partey was just a piece of a puzzle. He didn't even start most games. He started big games, but he didn't even start most games because they didn't need him. They didn't rely upon him because he wasn't the guy for them. It was Saul and Koke. Before, when Zinchenko was at Manchester City, was he a leader there? No, he was just a piece of the puzzle. So being an international captain where you play for a lesser nation that's not as good and you're the best player that plays on the best team, you retroactively become the captain. Like when I played when I was younger, in my club team, I wasn't a captain, but I ended up being the captain for my high school team because I was just the best. I was just the best player that they had, So I don't know. We don't have enough leaders. We don't. And Xhaka is not here anymore. So basically, you have Odegaard and you have Jorginho that's supposed to be a leader, but shit the bed. And you have Rice. And Rice to me is a leader. We don't have enough leaders in this team. Period. Come on. Let's be serious. You didn't play. I'm sorry. Reece, I'll give you a little 6-2. He tried. Came on with some energy. That's it. Now, Saka, people were blaming him for the first goal that Tottenham scored, and saying that it was his mistake because he didn't do well enough on Maddison. I'll keep it real with you. I just think he got cooked. I think Maddison is a good enough player where if he's playing up against a forward, he'll probably go by him, and that's probably a mismatch. You don't really want your winger, defending one of their better attackers. You just don't. If defensively we have Saka up against Maddison, I expect Maddison or Saka to cook him. So maybe Saka could do better, but I think all in all, he probably was our best player in terms of, winning the ball back, trying to take a Dogi on 1v1. He had him on toast and already on a yellow card early on in the game, which is something that I spoke about because I don't think he's a great defender. He's just good going forward. And we pretty much neutralized Udogi going forward as well because he had to defend Saka. And he scores the goal. Obviously, it deflects for a Romero own goal. but he scores the goal, he makes the penalty. And so I think he was largely probably our most dangerous player, to me, our best player on the day. So yeah, I hope he's not injured, but looks like we're going through a little bit of an injury whirlwind now. So I'm gonna give Saka a little 6 point. No, he scored. I don't know. I can't give any. It's a draw. I'll give him a 7. I thought he was great. Or not great. I thought he was good. Like I actually thought Saka had a good game. Um, all things considered, and the fact that they just continuously fouled him every single time they got near him. So even though we drew and we weren't great, he was good to me. And so I'm going to give him a 7. Richie Rabbit says, why didn't Odegaard take the penalty? Because he didn't. We don't have a set in stone one, but I think based on this season so far, you would say that Saka probably will take most of them, but Odegaard is an option, you know? Yo-Yo says Saka was ready to win the game in the first half, but the other players, he ran out of steam. If you actually watch the game, you could see what the plan was. Win it in the first 35 minutes because we don't have it in the tank. And we just kind of shit the bed on that. I know that the game is 90 minutes, so you have to play the entire game, but you guys know what I mean. We would put them on maximum pressure in those first 30 to 35 minutes, and they were on the ropes. And Saka was a big part of that. And so I'm not going to ignore that because of the result that actually, for me, doesn't have much to do with him, even though I know people feel like he should have defended so much better on that. So yeah. Ivy says Saka did well today. Chosen One says, I hope Odie, Saka, and Deck get some rest during the Carabao Cup on Wednesday. I don't think Saka is seriously injured. I do think he caught a knock, though. World Boss says, Saka could have done better, but had no business being where he was regarding the first goal. Cosmic Moth says, Saka 6. I expect more from him, though. Olu says, Madison didn't cook shit. Saka was making on the wrong side. Shocking basic defending the goal side. Defend your side of the goal easy. It's easy for a defender. I think it's a little disingenuous to say that, Saka just should have done so much better there, and there's no wiggle room for the idea that Madison is a good player and he just got the better of Saka in that situation. Saka maybe wasn't in the best position, but I'm not blaming him for that goal. Maybe he could do better, but other players get to be good too. Other players get to be intelligent too. Again, some of you guys are saying Spurs were way better than us and they're a way better team than us and they surpassed us. So if they have good players, maybe they just did well in those circumstances. Saka had a good game and Madison cooked him in that situation, which most forwards are forwards for a reason because they're not great at defending. They're not good at defending. So, and I don't know where White was. I have not a clue where that man was. Yo-Yo says Saka's defending was horrific on that goal, but I'm more frustrated by Rhea's decision making it before, batting it back into thing. I hear what you're saying. World Boss says, I burst out laughing when I hear you say this shit the bed. At least you got me laughing, Jess. I mean, it's the truth. It's the truth. Let's see. Boy says the players lost their motivation when Jesus missed that chance, deflated us with that miss. I actually think they became deflated the moment that Jorginho made the mistake. Do you guys think that Jesus not putting that goal away was when you saw the team deflate, or did you think they deflated after the Jorginho mistake? So yeah. Olu says that was basic defending for all of our players, not just defenders. You don't defend against your goal. So let's say that Saka should have done better for that goal and you want to blame him for it. He still was probably our best player on the day. So I'm still giving him a 7. Despite that, we will agree to disagree that I don't think it's to the level in which it was horrific and what is he doing? And oh my goodness, there was a catalog of errors before that. I don't want my winger up against Madison anyway. I think Madison does well there. And so 7. Norma says Jorginho killed the game. Matt G says, I think Jorginho's mistake killed the team. It completely defeated the team. The Cosmic Moth says, after the Georgie Howler, it really destroyed the momentum. And so Jesus may have missed that chance, and that was a huge chance missed and really should be getting put away. The game literally turned on a specific moment that I think all of us can agree on, despite even if you feel like we need a true number 9, because I know it's like I feel like we need a true number 9. So Jesus's miss is the reason why we lost the game and is the reason why it deflated everybody. It wasn't. It was Jorginho. So you can still want a true number 9 and also recognize the fact that it was actually Jorginho's miss that deflated the team, because we still came back and we're 2-1 up. Can't be deflated if you go 2-1 up. Like, sorry. So yeah. It's, to me, it was Jorginho. Yo-Yo says that's a cop out. Plenty of time left in the game to right a wrong, not excusing Jorginho's stupidity. Fair enough. I still think it deflated them. Whether it's right or wrong is like, I still think the team should still go on and try to win the game. I understand what you're saying, Yo-Yo. Like, it shouldn't, it doesn't change the fact that it did deflate the team, but should it have deflated the team? No. I get what you're saying. The team needs to be able to persevere beyond that. But, people are also saying that like Arsenal needed to play with the emotion of a North London derby. And they didn't see that. This is one of the first games that we've played against Spurs in a North London derby at home where it didn't actually feel like we played with that level of energy. And I think it's just because we were tired and we played it like any other game. And I'm not sure that I think that that's 100% the wrong thing. I think as fans, we want North London derby, but I actually would have preferred us just to be professional and win the game 2-0 and not let the emotions overtake us. And I think we were playing it right. And in the end, we just made the mistakes. It wasn't like a North London derby in terms of the energy, but we also weren't in a position where we were trying to show people that we were actually a good team. We weren't sitting in 8th and this is the only game that we have to worry about. Like, this is the first season in a while that we have bigger things to worry about than North London derby. Does that make sense? Like, this is the first season in a while where we're being expected to win trophies and to be in a title race and stuff like that. So I actually don't think they were like fully focused on it being a North London derby, even though the fans are. Like, I think they were just trying to win it in the first 30 minutes. Like, and they couldn't do it. Like, it's crazy. It's just it was a different feel. It was really important for Tottenham, because we're trying to show everybody that we're a really good team. But for Arsenal, I think it was just a lot of the players wanted to win it early and we couldn't do it because certain players didn't do what they were supposed to do. Eddie, I was disappointed that he started the game, and I'm just going to I expect you guys to be totally transparent on the way that you guys feel about things. And I will obviously let you guys know if I agree with it or not, but you are 100% entitled to your opinion. I also feel like, somebody that, people are constantly coming at me about Eddie Nketiah because they feel like it's wrong to like single him out. And I don't think it's his fault that we didn't win the game. I don't. Like, there were so many other things that happened in that game. But as like an overall thing, I think Arteta is way too committed to Eddie Nketiah. He's a blind spot and he plays minutes when he shouldn't. And he's just not at Arsenal's level. And today it really shone. The last couple of games that he's played, he's done relatively nothing. Against Everton, he really didn't do much. Against United, he didn't really do much. And today he didn't do much. He has started in the last 3 Premier League games. He started 3 of 6. I'm sorry. He started more than that. No, he started a lot. He started like 5. So he started 5 out of the 6 Premier League games. In the last 3, he hasn't been good enough. Now, this is what Eddie kind of does. He starts off really well. And then people that like Eddie start saying, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. And then they go quiet when he goes missing. He really just is not at the level. When he gets a consistent run of games, he kind of starts off okay. And then it's an easy day out for the opposition's defense. I thought he was largely like this, did nothing against the Everton defense, which is a poor defense. Like, He just doesn't have it. He couldn't hold up the ball today. He couldn't dribble past anybody. His passes were bad. And the one chance that he had to make the right decision, when basically Tottenham player put it on a plate for him, he thought he was Harry Kane and tried to, like, Harry Kane is the only striker in the world that makes that shot, at the near post, and somehow it goes in. I don't know what he's thinking in that moment. And for him to play 100 minutes and Jesus not to go central, and for us to put in Nelson, like, at halftime, that should be the move, because you probably only have about 20 more minutes of a fit, like, of firing Jesus. So you want to put him central and then bring in somebody else. But Nketiah plays the entire game. The entire game after he's done absolutely nothing. And if there's one thing that I can look at Arteta and say I don't think you got right, is the substitutions up front. I understand that if Rice is injured, then you have to bring in Jorginho. Fair enough. Maybe he thought Fabio Vieira need to come off because Havertz would do more. And to be honest, at halftime, a lot of you guys were saying, take Fabio Vieira off and put Havertz in. I still thought it was a wrong call. But up top, that just didn't make any sense. It just didn't make any sense. Like, Eddie does not need to be playing 100 minutes for Arsenal Football Club in North London Derby, period, point blank, period, boo. It just stinks, and he has to pass there. Like, it's actually insanity that he does not pass there. Like, who do you think you are? Like, you're not making that. You're not doing that. And it's just shocking. But there's certain players that, like, managers attach themselves to, where I think they set themselves up for failure. And Eddie, for me, is one of those. He's never really been up to the level, and we've kind of convinced ourselves that, he's the second best, second striker in the league, and, all this type of stuff. I get that we want to back our guys, but the guy's not good enough, and we're going to be playing against Brentford and Bournemouth, and I'm just afraid we're going to see more of him. I'm afraid he's going to start against Manchester City. And the only game that we've played well from an attacking standpoint, where we look like ourselves, was the game that he didn't play in, and I just think, like, the answers are just fucking there. And I would have rather have seen Havertz up front, or, Gabriel Jesus up front with Reece on the wing. Because even if it didn't work, then you still had the opportunity to bring Nketiah in. But I don't understand why Nketiah is always like the first option, why he's the first guy off the bench. I get that he trains well and he's a nice guy and he has a good mentality, but at some point the talent needs to matter more than anything else. And right now, if I want to keep the continuity of the team and play like a semblance of how we usually play, I'm not moving my best center forward out of his position, putting him out on the fucking wing and playing Eddie Nketiah for 100 minutes. I'm just not. Like, it was wild. It was wild. Man played 100 minutes today. And something in my stomach told me, when the rumors of Trossard being out yesterday came out, that Nketiah would start this game. And I was right. Because I just know Mikel, he is way too committed to this player. I don't care how many times people try to show me stats or try to show me, clips of anything. I just know in my soul, this guy's not good enough. And some of you guys may feel the same way about players that I like. Fair enough. But my feeling on Eddie Nketiah is that he is the type of player that you attach yourself to if you want to get sacked, because he's just not good enough, and it's obvious. And the fans become more and more frustrated because they're watching a player that's not good enough continuously get minutes over players that should. People were saying, I told you so, when he scored against Fulham and Trossard had a bad game. People were crying for Trossard today. Why? Because it is just obvious. Like, Trossard is clear of Eddie. He could have 2 or 3 bad games and he's still clear of the guy. So he's not the reason why we didn't win today. But Arteta's attachment to him worries me, because we need our manager making the best decisions. And I feel like Eddie is a squad player. Like, he is somebody that comes in for 20 minutes at the end of a game. He is not the guy you start in a North London derby and play for 100 minutes. Like, he's just not. Like, for me, he's not. So I like the guy. He's professional. He does a good job sometimes, but we see this all the time. He starts off well. It's happened last season as well. Jesus was injured, started off well, and then we played about a month too long with him in the team, and our results suffered for it. We weren't scoring enough goals, and we didn't score enough goals today. So it's tough. Cook me if you want. Be emotional about Eddie Nketiah if you want, but it's just a strange decision. So, yeah, you know, he stood out to me more than anybody, more than Fabio, more than Havertz, more than anybody. Like, as the player that was just not, even in the 30 to 45 minutes where we were playing well, he just was killing us, you know? And I just feel like I'm watching last season all over again, where it's obvious that he's not the guy, but Arteta is like, "You're gonna like this guy. I'm gonna play him." And I'm looking at Arteta like, "He's not the guy. He's gonna get you sacked. You need to stop playing him. Like, just try something different." Like, I would have accepted Havertz up front because at least I would have known that Arteta has recognized that Eddie is not it, because we can't play our fluid way of playing with him. Eddie, like, it might seem harsh, but I thought he really was poor. Like, I wanna give him a 4. I do. I feel like he was that bad. Like, maybe it's just my bias. I don't know. Give him a 4.5. He was, because everybody was bad, but damn, he was bad, you know? Damn. Richie Rabbit says 3. Malv says a 0. Clive says, he's not that bad. Your worst player today was Zinchenko. Where was he anyway? Didn't watch the game. Man City, like, first of all, you would make it somebody who doesn't play for you anymore. But if you watch the game, Zinchenko didn't really do anything that bad or didn't cost us a goal or anything like that. Eddie was clearly our worst player. This is one of those make it about you moments. Like, it's not about Man City right now. Like, Eddie was clearly our worst player out there. Boy says Arteta looks terrified of Jesus getting injured again, hence sticking with the ever reliable and uninjured Nketiah. Richie Rabbit said it's been clear for about 2 years. The Cosmic Moss says Eddie would be a great center forward for a team like Fulham, not Arsenal. And that's really what I'm saying, is that, like, you could feel like somebody is not, like, is a good player. Like, if you play, let's just put it this way: if you play for a Premier League level team, like, you are a good player in the context of making it as a footballer. And he is a good player, like, he is, and he knows where the goal is. But Arsenal are in just a completely different stratosphere right now with the type of pressure that we're under. Like, it's just, you cannot have Eddie Nketiah starting major games for you. You can't, you know. And it's a blind spot for Mikel Arteta, I think. I was never really that enthused about him getting the new contract. I'm not enthused about him not being sold this past summer. Again, I would have sold him and Balogun and brought in somebody else. I don't know what else to say. Elliot Roberts says, spot on, Jess. He's not the guy. Clive says, I would want him as a second striker, but that does not mean that I would not, like, I think you're saying I would not want him as a second striker, but that does not mean Eddie is not good. Yeah, I already kind of said that. Eddie is not, like, the worst player in the world. I just don't want him at Arsenal, starting games at the very least. Blaze says, hold on, Gabriel Jesus was played as a left winger today, and then Nketiah played as a striker. No, Arteta is crazy. And that's the thing, is people are like, that's the only choice that he had. It wasn't. You could have played Reece. And the thing about, like, Pedro Porro is he's not that great of a defender where you felt like you needed Jesus. Like, Jesus was cooking him. But I think Reece Nelson could have done a good job against him. And what was frustrating to me about Eddie is he's somebody that did not play at all against PSV. So he had no reason to not be sharp. And he looked duller than a butter knife out there. Jesus was winning the ball, and, the whole game plan was to make them make mistakes in possession at the back, and it was working. And you have to be aware of the balls when they're coming, like, when they make the little mistakes and they make the bad pass backs, or, the ball kind of like ricochets off of somebody, and all of those second balls just went to a Spurs player when they was around him. Not only that, but he couldn't hold the ball up to save his life. And it was just really bad. like for me. But again, like I could rewatch the game and feel like I'm being a little bit harsh. So I will open up, like I will leave room for that. Like because I'm not a big Eddie person. So when I watch games with Eddie in them, I tend to already have like almost like a little like thing there. Um, but I feel like I'm right on this one. I feel like I watched a bad Eddie game. I feel like I watched a bad Eddie game. World Boss says we are settling for a second best if we think Eddie is good enough. And we know the type of attackers we have previously had. Eddie's just not good enough, and Eddie will be the downfall of Mikel. He's just not good enough. Saksham says Nketiah is a B tech. Well back. Philip says Eddie just doesn't fit our system. We need to swap him for Tony. In January, couldn't help but think of Tony coolly finishing the shot Jesus missed. Yeah, and this is also that as somebody that really loves Jesus, I am furious about him missing that chance where he took the ball off of Madison. That was also a really bad miss. So it's not just Eddie, but Jesus is over like the roundness of his game was good enough for me to feel like, okay, this is just who Jesus is. We know that we're going to need a number 9 at some point, but Jesus is good enough to play for Arsenal Football Club. Eddie is not, so I'm not letting Jesus off the hook on that because I expect him to finish that, but not this guy playing 100 minutes, y'all. Nah. Let's see. Big Jeezy says, tell that dude to hang up and leave. Saturdays equals you says 0 goals from open play. That's my takeaway today. But I know that you're someone that was like, we're not playing well, blah, blah, blah. But it's such an easy answer for why we're not playing well. It's actually the most easy answer in the world. We don't play as well as an attacking force with Eddie Nketiah up front. And every single game that he started for us, we have been really poor attack-wise. And we have come up against a lot of deep blocks, but he just stops us from being fluid up front. The one game that we played without him, where he just wasn't even a factor in the game at all, we looked like ourselves. And PSV were just as open as Tottenham were today, but we couldn't take advantage of it because it's like you have this blank black hole in the middle where with Jesus up there, he can at least hold the ball up. And the thing is that they respect Jesus. So either they go through the back of him and he wins a foul, or they like go away from him and allow him to collect it. And then we just go forward. With Eddie, they don't respect him at all. So they just take the ball off of him. It's just that simple. And so for me, it's really, to me, because of last season, it's the same thing that we saw last season where the goals dried up when we didn't have certain people on the pitch. For me, it's just as simple as like Arsenal need a fluid front three. They need a technical player at center forward. And we're not at this space where we can just have like a poacher in there and an average one at that, so that's kind of where I'm at with it. You can say that maybe the argument against that is that like PSV are like a worse team, but I don't think so. Like I don't think PSV are as good as Tottenham, but I do think that if we had played Eddie up front against PSV, we would have seen something quite similar where we wouldn't have gotten that same creativity and free flowing that we usually get. And yeah, like we create enough chances where even if we bottle them, we still score like 3 goals. That's what happened against PSV. But again, like when you play Eddie up there, you're going to get less chances, and you also have somebody that's going to miss probably one big one. And that's a problem. Saksham says Jesus and Nketiah both are shameless in front of goal. They are, like both of them miss big chances, and we need another striker. Granddaddy Gooner says Eddie showed a lot of energy but not enough quality. Jesus should have gone up front with Nelson up wide. Havertz did well when he came on. Social Join says Giroud is clear of Jesus. Maybe as a striker and a finisher, but not as a player. I think we sometimes disrespect the hell out of Jesus. And I won't be that person. He may not be the most clinical number 9, but the guy is an absolute like baller. And so, yeah, if we had another number 9 in the team, I don't think we'd be as worried about the Jesus situation. But I'm not about to sit here and disrespect Jesus and say that Giroud is clear when Giroud missed so many chances for us in a title like running season against Leicester, for fuck's sake. It wasn't even against Man City. It was against Leicester, and the guy absolutely bottled it. So, nah, not for me. Not for me, man. Not for me. I know that we want to go in on our players, but Giroud was a joke. For Arsenal at least. Next, Jesus for me. I thought in the first 45 minutes was probably one of our best players, but missed. Like, that is the story of Jesus. Probably one of our best players, but when it comes to goal scoring, he's going to have at least one big chance missed, and that was it. That was the chance that if you score that, the game is over. So, and because he's such a good player, you do go in on him a little bit harder because you expect better of him. So for me, Jesus just a 5.5. Like, I love the guy, but that just hurt me so much. Like, you guys saw me on the watch along. If you guys watched it, like, when he missed that chance, I could not speak for like another 2 minutes because in a game like this, it's going to come back to bite you. And it did. It came back and it bit us like nobody's business. Like, when you're on top of a team the way that we were against Tottenham for those first 35 minutes, and we had them on the ropes for at least 10, you have got to put them away like we did PSV. Didn't do it. Got caught out. Damn. Like, 5.5. Love Jesus. That's my guy. You bottled it. Like, that sucks so much. Boy says Jesus going to get some slander. Havertz got when we signed him and he missed some chances. I mean, should Jesus get the same amount of slander as Havertz? Probably not. Like, let's be real. Like, Jesus does have goals already this season. So, but I get some people want to stick the boot in Jesus because they feel like we need a number 9. For me, like, the club not having like a like traditional number 9 is not a reason for me to be like overly harsh on another player that's playing in that position. I try to judge players on what they're actually doing, you know? So yeah, let's see what else is going on in the world. Oh, Newcastle are beating somebody 7-0. Who is it? Let's see. Oh, it's Sheffield. That's crazy. That's a crazy score line. But again, Newcastle are the type of team where if they get on top of you, they will beat you down. So yeah, that's a serious, serious score for them. But you know, obviously now people are going to get worried about Newcastle again. They've lost 3 games already this season. So let's not panic too badly. But I can't wait for us to play Luton and Burnley and Sheffield because those teams are awful. And we should, if we don't have Eddie up front, we will score loads of goals against them as well. But that is insane. Let me actually look at this. That is shameful from these teams are actually some of the worst that have ever come up. Seriously. But yeah, that's a crazy scoreline. But that was, our last player here. In terms of Mikel Arteta, I know people like are fully blaming him for it. I do think he has a part to play, and the manager always kind of has a part to play when you don't get the 3 points. But I have to be fair and say that I do think that the players made big enough mistakes where you can look at them as well and say, like, why didn't you do better? You know, I still feel like it's 25% Mikel Arteta and 75% the players. There's just no excuse for being up the way that we were and conceding the goal that we conceded in, seconds after we scored the penalty. There's no excuse for Jesus missing the Madison chance where he nicked it off of him. There's no excuse for Eddie not squaring the ball. There's none. There's no excuse for, conceding 5 minutes, before the half ends, which is something that we consistently do. So, people will say, well, why is Jorginho out on the pitch? He's on the pitch because Thomas Partey cannot maintain his fitness. And also because Rice, has an injury, and had Arteta kept Rice on and then he got a longer term injury, you guys would be mad about that. So Jorginho, for me, like, he had to come on and he made a big mistake, and that's on him. What I can blame Mikel Arteta for 100% is Eddie on for 100 minutes and him starting him from the beginning anyway. So, that, like, it's really the Eddie one that really stood out to me in terms of the substitutions. I don't agree with the Fabio Vieira at halftime for Havertz, but a lot of people were calling for him, were saying that Fabio was so poor that they would have probably started Havertz. So you know? Um, so yeah, and he didn't have, you know, certain players like if we had Martinelli, Trossard would have came on instead of so and so. So I also think that he was hamstrung a little bit by the options that he had. So I'm gonna just give Arteta. We lost. Oh, we didn't lose, but we drew the game, and it was a poor game. So I'm gonna give him like a 6, like 6 out of 10. Like he was just as bad as the players. Like it was just he didn't have a great management game. But people that are saying things like he was outclassed by a better manager need to sit the f down. People that are saying that he's 100% at fault need to go sit down. Like stop overreacting. He made a bad decision starting Eddie, but I am sorry. We should have won that game despite Eddie being out there. Period. Period, boo. Period, boo. So Yo-Yo says Arteta's reaction to Georgie's mistake says it all because we've been here before. Like we've been here before. Like how many times do we have to see ourselves chuck it into our own net? How many times do we have to see ourselves chuck it into our own net? We do it all the time, and we've done it several times already this season. So it's just a little bit like, how many times are we going to have to do this? And Jorginho is meant to have so much experience, and I don't know. That's just a really, really poor mistake because it ended the game. Arsenal did not have enough in the tank, I think, to come back from being 2-1 up to drawn 10 seconds later and then go again. We didn't have enough in the tank. Like the team was spent. You could just see it. So, he knew that the game was done at that point. And I'm glad that that we at least drew the game, because after that, Spurs they went for the draw. Like they didn't even really try after that. They were happy to get that draw because it was like a win for them. Sacksham says Arteta should leave. He's holding us back. Malv says Arsenal need a good manager, has Mikel number 2 so we can rotate to need competition in every area. That's actually really good. I like that. Concrete says I hope this game is a wake-up call. For who? Who do you think the wake-up call should be for? The players, the manager, both? Who do you think the wake-up call is for? That's what I want to know. World Boss says, when we have a fully fit squad, including Timber, I really want to see how the team really performs as well as the decisions Arteta will make. It's unfortunate, World Boss, but, I thought about that I was really interested to see what Arteta would have done had Timber not gotten injured and Partey had gotten injured, because then he would have had to make real decisions and we would see where his loyalties really lie and who he's committed to and who he's not. But the reality of this season is I do think that we're never going to have a fully fit squad. We haven't had one since the first game of the season. And we're like 6 games in and we could potentially have 4 or 5 injuries. So for me, like it's nice to hope, to want to see those things. But the reality is I think we're just going to have a rotating injuries, and we're 100% I think going to have to go into the January transfer window to either get a defender or an attacker because we don't have enough. I don't think we have enough, maybe even a midfielder, really, because we don't have enough, and that's clear. So yeah. Clive says, but Ange did better than Arteta. Just why you say they went for the draw when they played better than you? They played better than us, but they still ended up with the same amount of points. So here's my thing is results-based analysis and just watching the game from the perspective of a rival. Sometimes I do feel like I'm watching a completely different game than you. If you watch the first half, we really should have been clear from there. So Arteta was out coaching Ange at that point, and then he went for the draw in the end. So did Arteta. And so they both ended up with the same amount of points. So how did a manager outclass Mikel Arteta if he didn't come around with 3 points? And we still could have won the game. And it still took a mistake from us for them to even get anything out of that game. So I get like, okay, if Ange did better, fine. What does that give him? It gives him a point and it gave us a point. There were games where we drew or beat teams last season and nobody was saying that Mikel Arteta was outclassing people. But now like Ange outdid us. Like I didn't see the game like that because Ange didn't do anything to make Jorginho make that mistake. Sorry. World Boss says, I was going to ask you, Jess, do you think we should be looking at bringing in players in the January window? Yes, I do. And it's funny because I'm seeing people in the comments saying we should have went for Isak, but they must not watch the last 3 games where Isak was absolutely missing. He's battering a bottom feeder. And now people are saying that, oh, we should have went gotten so and so, so and so. I hate that the reactions after a game that we don't play well is like the worst hours, because the hot takes are hot and they are stinky as well. Boy says Ange's Spuds were weak. I wasn't impressed at all with how average we played. We should have won. If they were that good, they should have won. Exactly. As bad as we were, because everybody's saying that we were terrible and they were amazing, why didn't they come out with the 3 points? That make no sense. So yeah, but that's it, you guys. I think we need to cut it there because we've been doing this for a long time. It's been over 2 hours, and I need to go. So enjoy the rest of your day. Try not to take it like so bad, so for me, like, it's a draw, so it is what it is, and we go again, we should take this with the same energy that we did when we were 1 point further along last season at this stage, where we were way too optimistic. Now we shouldn't be way too like destroyed either. Last season, after this stage, when we had 1 more point than we did now, we fully thought we were winning the league. Now we feel like we're fucking getting relegated. And so at some point we need to find balance and just like calm down. Like, it wasn't like we lost, and it's not the end of the world. We'll figure it out. But I love you guys. Hopefully, we bounce back from this. Like I said, on Patreon, post-match podcast with James B, as well as probably a first half rewatch. So love you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.